US deports dozens of Russians as first flight heads to Moscow. Putin's war hits Russia's budget, mass business closures expected, and how Russia recruits drone operators but sends them to infantry. The latest news next. A deportation flight carrying Russians and other refugees has left the United States, marking the first such operation of 2026, according to Radio Svoboda.
This morning, a deportation flight departed from Mesa, Arizona, carrying Russians whose asylum requests were denied in the U.S. Dmytro Valuyev, head of the Russian America for Democracy in Russia.
According to media reports, this is the fifth mass deportation flight in the past year and the first in 2026. Previous deportations of Russians occurred in June, August, and December 2025. The exact number of Russians on board is unknown, but about 20 individuals were being prepared for deportation as of January 24th. The flight also includes citizens from Iran and refugees from Arab countries. Valuyev noted that some people whose asylum applications were still under review were removed from the flight before departure. Some Russians were held in overcrowded detention cells prior to deportation. About Trump's immigration policy, US President Donald Trump has signaled plans for new immigration restrictions, including expanding the list of countries whose citizens are barred from entering the US. He also announced intentions to radically intensify enforcement against illegal immigration in 2026. This aggressive immigration control policy began following his return to the White House, citing high levels of illegal immigration under the previous administration. Federal raids have already sparked protests and lawsuits over violent methods and racial profiling. Additional measures could significantly affect the economy, jobs, and the political landscape ahead of the 2026 midterm elections. In Charlotte, North Carolina, federal immigration agents conducted a large-scale operation, detaining at least 81 individuals for immigration violations. In Russia, preparations are underway for a large-scale wave of closures among small and medium-sized businesses. The cause is a budget crisis triggered by the war, according to the Telegram channel of the Center for Countering Disinformation. The agency reported that amid VAT increases and restrict access to the simplified taxation system, financial analysts forecasted that up to 30% of companies in the small and medium business sector could close.
Seeking ways to replenish the deficit budget, the Putin government is playing an extremely dangerous game. In the short term, there may indeed be additional tax revenue, but ultimately, the state will lose far more. Businesses that close pay no taxes at all.
The Center for Countering Disinformation added that amid rising war expenditures and economic stagnation, the Kremlin once again chooses the easiest path, shifting the financial burden onto citizens and businesses. While propaganda talks about how Russia is resilient under sanctions and paints a picture of a Putin economic miracle, in reality the economy is increasingly exhausted, the CCD summarized. About decline of Russia's economy. A week ago, the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service reported that in 2026, the Russian economy is entering a phase of expensive money, which is becoming the new norm amid the war against Ukraine and prolonged macroeconomic instability. This means that Russian companies will have to reassess project payback periods, payment deferral conditions, and the real cost of borrowing. Additionally, the International Monetary Fund lowered its forecast for Russia's economic growth in 2026 by 0.2 percentage points. The new preliminary growth estimate is 0.8%. According to the Ukrainian Foreign Intelligence Service, the scale of nationalization in Russia in 2025 broke all previous records. This indicates further counteraction of market mechanisms and stronger state control over the economy. We also reported that Russia ended 2025 with catastrophic economic indicators. Notably, oil prices fell to $40 per barrel, and the space industry regressed to 1961 levels. For Russians, the economic picture is grim and personal. Small and medium-sized business owners face a perfect storm: skyrocketing taxes, restricted access to simplified systems, and a state eager to plug a war-driven budget deficit at their expense. Analysts warn that up to 30% of these companies could shut down, rising livelihoods and future opportunities. This isn't just numbers on a balance sheet. It's families, careers, and communities under pressure. The Kremlin's policies shift the cost of its war onto ordinary citizens, while propaganda paints an illusion of resilience. Reality is harsh: stagnant wages, expensive loans, collapsing markets, and dwindling prospects define everyday life for Russians in 2026. The war is no longer only abroad, it is draining the domestic economy, leaving citizens to shoulder the burden. Russia is intensifying efforts to recruit personnel into the so-called unmanned systems forces. However, some of their recruits may also be used in regular ground units. The Institute for the Study of War reports. As RSW knows, in recent days, the Russian Ministry of Defense has launched a federal campaign to recruit contract soldiers into the unmanned systems forces. Recruits are offered one-year contracts that formally envision service exclusively in unmanned systems units. Candidates sought among students and IT specialists. The Russian Ministry of Defense is targeting young people with analytical abilities, computer literacy, good coordination, and vestibular stability. Priority is given to students and technology specialists. In Russia, officials claim that contract soldiers cannot be transferred to infantry units and have the right to leave service after completing 1 year if they do not wish to extend their contracts. Risk of forced redeployment to the front. At the same time, Russian opposition outlet Astra reports that since mid-January 2026, the Russian Ministry of Defense has been actively conducting recruitment campaigns at universities. According to students, they were pressured to sign standard contracts with the Russian Ministry of Defense rather than separate agreements for their unmanned system forces. However, such a contract may allow military command to transfer recruits to infantry units and send them to the front line, as well as retain them in service even after the one-year contract expires. Kremlin seeks ways to compensate for wartime losses. RSW reminds that the Kremlin is trying by all means to increase its mobilization resources due to heavy losses suffered by the Russian army at the front. In particular, Moscow uses arguments about protecting critical infrastructure to mask broader plans for training reservists. In addition, Russia is focusing recruitment campaigns in central regions, attempting to avoid forced conscription in politically sensitive cities, including Moscow. In November last year, Russia officially created a new branch of the armed forces, unmanned systems. At the same time, it was reported that Russian forces had already formed regiments and units and had established common structures. On the night of January 26, Russian forces reported an attack by unidentified drones on Slavyansk-on-Kuban in Russia's Krasnodar Krai. It is possible that a local oil refinery was targeted, according to Russian Telegram channels. At night, the short channel reported explosions and gunfire in the city. It is claimed that Russian air defense forces are repelling the drone attack. According to local residents, after 1 a.m., they heard 5 to 7 explosions and several bright flashes were visible in the sky. Shortly before this, for safety reasons, there had been reports at the closure of Krasnodar airport. At the same time, videos appeared on social media capturing the explosions in Slavyansk-on-Kuban. Monitoring pages report that the attack is targeting the local oil refinery. So far, there have been no official comments from local authorities. It is also not yet known whether the attack caused any damage to the oil refinery. For Russians, the drone attack on Slavyansk-on-Kuban is more than a headline. It is a moment of reckoning. Explosions in the night, the sudden closure of Krasnodar airport, and flashes lighting up the sky are stark evidence that no city is truly insulated from the consequences of the war. Critical infrastructure like oil refineries that fuel both the economy and military machine is now exposed, turning once passive domestic spaces into potential battlefields. This strike also carries a broader symbolic weight. It illustrates a simple truth. The war waged by the Russian state does not stay abroad. It returns, directly or indirectly, to ordinary citizens. For those who have supported, tolerated, or ignored the war, the message is clear. The cost of leadership decisions are now being felt at home. Fear, uncertainty, and disruption are no longer abstract. They are immediate and tangible. That's all for today. Thanks for watching this video. Support Ukraine, like and subscribe.